This is an attempt to make a spoiler-free video about Oliver Twist. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be discussing Oliver Twist, which is my favorite Charles Dickens novel to date. I've tried a couple other Dickens novels before, and I liked Great Expectations well enough, but it took quite a bit of energy for me to get through. I wouldn't have finished it, I don't think, if I didn't have to for a book club discussion. And I've tried A Tale of Two Cities a couple of times as well. Mainly, I think I tried that one at times in life when I shouldn't have been trying to tackle a more ambitious read. So I'm definitely going to revisit that one at some point in time. I've also read A Christmas Carol by him. So of those, Oliver Twist is my favorite novel to date, and I think it might be yours too. I found this novel not only to be super entertaining, but also very accessible compared to a lot of his other works. And a huge reason for that is because of the similarities between this story and Harry Potter. The two are not by any means identical, but the main character in both is an orphaned boy in London. And he, not to give anything away, has a kind of series of misfortunate events that befall him throughout the course of the story. And he has to deal with a lot of shady, villainous characters. And so for that reason alone, there's enough to draw a connection between Harry Potter and Oliver Twist. But beyond that, there's also this air of mystery about the entire story. You're exploring kind of the underbelly of London at the time. Kind of similar to how Harry's exploring the wizarding world, which to audiences was this place that they had never really been able to go before. I think a similar effect was achieved by Dickens's writing at the time. He's such a good writer that he was able to give people a glimpse into the realistic underbelly of London as it was at the time. Boys, and I guess children in general, were not treated well at all. Oliver Twist starts out the story in this rural workhouse, and then towards the beginning of the novel, I'm not going to give anything away about the back half of it for sure. This is an attempt to make a spoiler-free video about Oliver Twist. But towards the beginning of the novel, he makes his way to London, and there meets the people who will become the main characters of the story. That's the Artful Dodger, Nancy, this guy named Bill Sikes, who's kind of big, burly, and violent, and a guy named Fagin, who is a Jewish guy with a really ugly face, and he's kind of a misfit outcast in society, but he's also very intelligent. He's a schemer, and he has all these people around him who he gets to do thievery and other kind of illegal activities for him. It's a really fun read. There's a lot of really enjoyable banter between the characters, and even though the subject matter is pretty intense, like this novel is much more intense than the Best Picture winning musical adaptation from like the 60s, which I saw, and that movie adaptation is what made me think, okay, might be time for me to go ahead and read the novel. I can't emphasize enough the impact that this novel must have had on readers at the time. Keep in mind that there was no documentary-esque way of being acquainted with what life might have been like for people like the characters in this novel in London at the time. It provided a lot of shock value to readers, and it was published in serial fashion, which I think is really interesting. It was only coming out a couple of chapters at a time, so people had to wait and keep waiting and keep waiting. If you're looking to get into reading Dickens's novels, I think this is a great place to start. And reading Dickens is pretty important. It gives you a really nice perspective on the work of a lot of modern novelists who are super popular and who people like a lot. Examples of writers who have been heavily influenced by Dickens include John Irving and Donna Tartt, just to name a couple. But obviously, since Dickens is one of the most prolific novelists and most acclaimed novelists of all time, he's impacted quite a few more people than just those two. Reading classics isn't always fun, but I found this to be a really enjoyable read. I knocked it out sometimes in 2 or 3 hour chunks, and all told, it didn't really take me that long to get through. This looks pretty thick, but really it's only about 400 pages. There are a lot of endnotes, which I liked to flip back to quite a bit because there's a lot of terms in the story that I wouldn't have been able to pick up on otherwise. And all of them are marked, so at least in this edition, there were numbers along the way in each chapter, and it was pretty easy for me to go back and find the note that I needed. I just kind of like folded down the corners of the pages as I went along. If this novel seems kind of intimidating, I would definitely recommend watching the movie adaptation first. It won Best Picture in, I think, the 60s, and it's a musical. I don't always love musicals, but I did really like that one. There's a really good song that's sung by Fagin, who is easily my favorite character in the film version, and is up there in the book, but I really like the way the Artful Dodger is portrayed by Dickens. He's a fun character when he's on the page, but he's not in the story quite as much, especially towards the beginning, as he is in the film version. Hopefully this gave you enough to go on if you're looking to pick up this book. Let me know if you've already read it, what you liked about it or didn't like about it. If you aren't already, be sure to subscribe. I'll be making a lot more book-related content here in the near future. And if you enjoyed this video, if you got something out of it, if it helped you to make a decision about whether or not you wanted to read this book, consider leaving the video a like as well. That goes a long way. Happy reading, and I hope you have a good one.